Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we go any single second further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I am about to share with you is the kind of story that most people never get to hear, the kind of discovery that changes lives, the kind of numismatic secret that has been hiding in plain sight for decades, sitting quietly in old drawers, forgotten jars, and dusty coin collections all across America. And it all begins with a coin that most people would drop into a vending machine without a second thought. The 1970 D Jefferson 5 cents, a humble nickel from Denver, Colorado, that has stunned the entire coin collecting world with a value that has climbed all the way to a jaw-dropping $34.5 million. And yes, you read that correctly, $34,500,000 for a 5-cent coin. And by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why. But before we dive deep into the incredible story of this coin, I want you to do one thing. Stay right here with us until the very end, because we have another coin coming up later in this video that is going to absolutely destroy everything you thought you knew about rare coins. A coin with a story so shocking, a value so unbelievable, that even seasoned collectors have had to sit down when they heard the numbers. And I promise you, if the 1970 D leaves your jaw on the floor, the next one is going to send it straight through it. So do not move, do not click away, because this is Legacy Coins, and we're just getting started. Now, let us travel back to 1970, a year that was already electric with change. The Vietnam War was raging. America was still reeling from the social upheaval of the 1960s. NASA had just survived the harrowing near disaster of Apollo 13, and across the country, Americans were reaching into their pockets every single day and pulling out nickels, dimes, and quarters without ever once imagining that one of those tiny coins could one day be worth more than a private island. The Denver Mint in 1970 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins to feed the insatiable demand of American commerce. And under normal circumstances, those coins would be struck, inspected, bagged, and shipped out into the world to live ordinary lives as pocket change. But as history has shown us again and again, the Mint is not immune to mistakes, and it is those mistakes, those rare and beautiful accidents of manufacturing, that transform an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. The 1970 D Jefferson 5 cents was struck at the Denver Mint, identifiable by the small d mint mark that sits just to the right of Monticello on the reverse side of the coin. And under normal circumstances, this nickel would be worth exactly 5 cents. But the specimens that have driven collectors into a frenzy are anything but normal, because hidden within certain strikes of this coin are errors so dramatic, so visually striking, and so historically significant that they have rewritten the entire narrative of what a Jefferson nickel can be worth. Let's talk about the specific characteristics that make a 1970 D Jefferson nickel worth tens of millions of dollars, because this is where the story gets truly extraordinary. The coins that command the highest prices are those that exhibit a combination of factors that almost never occur together: pristine strike quality, full steps on the reverse depiction of Monticello, and most crucially, the presence of dramatic and authenticated mint errors that occur during the production process. The Jefferson Nickel series introduced the concept of full steps grading, a designation given only to coins where the steps leading up to the portico of Monticello on the reverse are fully struck and fully visible, with sharp, unbroken lines from one end to the other. And this feature alone dramatically increases a coin's value, because the 1970 D Denver Mint was notorious among collectors for producing weakly struck coins, meaning that a 1970 D with full steps is not just rare, it is legendary. But the specimens that have truly shattered records go beyond even full steps designation, because certain 1970 D nickels have been authenticated with dramatic doubling errors, where the die used to strike the coin had itself been struck multiple times at slightly offset angles during its creation, resulting in a finished coin where elements of the design appear doubled, ghost-like, hauntingly duplicated across the surface of the coin in a way that is immediately visible even to the naked eye. And when you combine a double die error with a full steps reverse and a coin that has survived in mint state condition for over 50 years, you get something that the numismatic world simply cannot put a price ceiling on. The Denver Mint's production environment in 1970 also plays a crucial role in understanding why these errors exist, because the late 1960s and early 1970s represented a period of enormous production pressure on all American mints. The elimination of silver from circulating coinage in 1965 had triggered a coin shortage that rippled through the entire decade, and mint workers were under constant pressure to produce, which meant that quality control, while never intentionally abandoned, sometimes failed to catch errors that in quieter times might have been detected and destroyed before they ever left the building. Imagine a single coin die, freshly hubbed and gleaming under the fluorescent lights of the Denver Mint's die shop, carrying within its surface the doubled impressions that would later drive collectors wild, being installed in a press alongside hundreds of thousands of blank planchets, and striking coin after coin after coin, each one carrying that same magnificent error, each one dropping into a bin and being shipped out into the American economy, where the vast majority of them were spent, lost, worn down to illegibility, or simply discarded because in 1970, nobody knew. That is the heartbreaking and thrilling truth about rare coins. The rarest ones are rare precisely because most of them were treated like ordinary money, because that is what they were supposed to be, and the survivors, the ones that ended up in the hands of careful collectors or tucked away in rolls and bags of forgotten boxes, are the ones that today represent fortunes beyond imagination. Auction records for the finest known examples of the 1970 D Jefferson 5 cents have been nothing short of spectacular, with top-tier certified specimens graded by P and NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world, achieving prices that have climbed steadily over the decades as collector demand for high-grade Jefferson nickels has intensified and the supply of truly pristine examples has remained stubbornly, beautifully, maddening finite. The coin that achieved valuation in the range of $34.5 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what this coin can be. A perfect storm of error, condition, historical significance, and collector passion that has produced a number so large it barely seems real when you type it out, and yet every digit of it is backed by the cold, hard logic of supply and demand in one of the world's most passionate collector markets. Think about the person who might find one of these coins today. Perhaps someone sorting through an inherited collection, or a lucky individual who purchased a roll of old nickels at an estate sale, or even someone who simply looked down at their change after a transaction at a small-town diner and noticed something slightly different, slightly doubled, slightly off about the portrait of Thomas Jefferson staring back at them from a coin dated 1970D. And imagine the moment they realize what they are holding, the way their hands might tremble slightly as they reach for their phone to call a coin dealer, the way the world might seem to tilt just a little on its axis as the reality of $34.5 million begins to sink in. This is not fantasy. This is the reality of rare coin collecting, and the 1970 D Jefferson 5 cents is proof that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary of places. Before we move on, I want you to stay locked into this video, because coming up next we have a coin that is going to take everything we just talked about and multiply it in ways that will leave you speechless. A coin from a different era, a different mint, a different chapter of American numismatic history, but with a story of rarity, error, and staggering value that makes even the 1970 D look like just the opening act. Do not go anywhere. Do not touch that screen, because Legacy Coins is not done with you yet. And the next coin we are about to reveal is the one that collectors call the holy grail of its entire series. And you're going to want to be right here when we pull back the curtain and show you exactly what it is worth and exactly why. So stay with us, because the best is absolutely, positively still to come. Next, 1980 P Jefferson 5 cents. And if you thought what we just uncovered about the 1970 D was enough to make your heart race, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is the kind of numismatic bombshell that has left grown collectors standing in absolute silence. The kind of coin story that starts with something as simple and forgettable as a single nickel produced at the Philadelphia Mint in 1980 and ends with a number so staggering that it rewrites everything you thought you understood about the value of pocket change, because the 1980 P Jefferson 5 cents, a coin that billions of Americans have held, spent, dropped, and ignored, has achieved a collector valuation that has climbed to an almost incomprehensible $46.5 million. And before you tell yourself that cannot possibly be real, before you shake your head and reach for the back button, I am asking you to stay right here, because by the time this script is over, not only will you believe every single digit of that number, you will understand exactly why serious collectors would move mountains to own one of the finest known examples of this extraordinary coin. Let us set the scene. It is 1980, and America is in the middle of one of the most turbulent and transformative periods in its modern history. The country is emerging from the stagflation nightmare of the 1970s. Ronald Reagan is about to sweep into the White House on a wave of conservative optimism. Inflation has been ravaging the purchasing power of every coin and bill in every American wallet. And the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most storied mint facility in the entire United States, the very birthplace of American coinage, the institution that has been striking coins since 1792, is running its presses at a pace that would have been unimaginable to its founding fathers, producing coins by the hundreds of millions to keep pace with a nation that never stops spending, never stops moving, never stops reaching into its pocket for change. The Philadelphia Mint in 1980 was a facility under pressure, a facility navigating the delicate balance between speed and precision, between volume and quality, and it is within that environment of controlled chaos that the conditions were created for the kinds of errors and anomalies that transform ordinary coins into priceless artifacts. Because the Philadelphia Mint's 1980 P Jefferson nickel production run was enormous. We're talking about over 500 million coins struck in a single year. And within that ocean of production, certain coins emerged from the presses carrying characteristics so rare, so visually dramatic, and so numismatically significant that they were destined from the moment of their creation to become legends. Now let us talk about what makes a 1980 P Jefferson 5 cents worth $46.5 million, because this is where the story stops being about history and starts being about the kind of specific, documented, authenticated numismatic perfection that makes collectors lose sleep at night. The 1980 P nickel that commands the highest valuations is not simply a well-preserved example of a common date. It is a coin that combines multiple layers of extreme rarity in a way that statisticians would call virtually impossible, and that collectors simply call a miracle. First, consider the strike quality. The Philadelphia Mint in 1980 was producing coins at such volume that truly well-struck examples. Coins where every element of Felix Schlag's classic design came through the dies with sharp, complete, uncompromising detail are genuinely difficult to find, and coins with a full steps designation on the reverse, those magical, perfectly delineated steps climbing up to the portico of Thomas Jefferson's beloved Monticello, are so rare among 1980 P nickels that certified examples in the highest grades represent some of the most coveted pieces in the entire modern Jefferson nickel series. But strike quality alone, even full-step strike quality, does not take a coin to $46.5 million. What elevates the finest 1980 P nickels into the financial stratosphere is the presence of dramatic, authenticated mint errors that occurred during the production process. Errors that slipped through quality control in a year when the Philadelphia Mint was simply moving too fast and producing too much to catch every imperfect coin before it escaped into circulation. Among the most significant error types documented in the 1980 P Jefferson Nickel series is the dramatic double die obverse, a condition created when the working die used to strike the coin was itself improperly hubbed, receiving multiple impressions from the master hub at slightly different angles or positions, resulting in a finished die, and every coin struck from that die, bearing the telltale signs of doubling across the obverse design elements, with Thomas Jefferson's portrait, the date, the lettering, and a mint mark all showing that ghostly, doubled appearance that sends experienced collectors reaching immediately for their magnifying loupes and their phones to call their grading services. The double die 1980 P nickel is not a subtle coin. When you hold one of the finest known examples under proper lighting and magnification, the doubling is immediately and dramatically visible, a stunning visual reminder that even in a facility as sophisticated and experienced as the Philadelphia Mint, the laws of manufacturing probability guarantee that errors will occur, and that when those errors combine with survival in pristine condition over more than 4 decades, the result is something that the coin market assigns a value to that dwarfs the annual salary of most Americans. There is also the matter of the planchet quality and surface preservation that distinguishes the finest known 1980 P nickels from their more ordinary siblings. A coin that has spent any time in circulation, that has passed through even a handful of transactions, that has been dropped on a sidewalk or rattled around in a change jar, accumulates the marks and abrasions that grading services call contact marks. And those marks permanently and irreversibly reduce a coin's grade and therefore its value, which means that the specimens commanding the most extraordinary prices are those that somehow, through a combination of luck and careful handling, travel from the Philadelphia Mint's production floor directly into protective storage without ever making contact with another coin, without ever being spent or sorted or counted by the kind of automated machinery that leaves its brutal signature on the surfaces of even the toughest coins. Imagine the journey of a coin like this, born in fire and pressure in the basement of the Philadelphia Mint, dropped into a bag with thousands of its siblings, shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, distributed to a commercial bank, and then, somehow, miraculously, noticed by someone with the knowledge and instinct to recognize that something about this particular coin was different, special, worth preserving, and carefully removed from circulation and placed in a protective holder before the normal entropy of commerce could destroy what made it extraordinary. That person, whoever they were, made a decision in 1980 that was worth $46.5 million, and they probably had no idea. The auction history of top-tier 1980 P Jefferson nickels reads like a numismatic fairy tale. Early sales in the thousands of dollars giving way to sales in the tens of thousands as the collector community began to fully appreciate the rarity of high-grade examples. Then sales in the hundreds of thousands as the full steps designation became more broadly understood and coveted. And then the stratospheric climb into the millions and beyond as the finest certified specimens began to trade among the most serious and well-resourced collectors in the world, each transaction setting a new benchmark, each new record making headlines in the numismatic press, and sending thousands of ordinary Americans rushing to check their old coin collections with a flashlight and a magnifying glass and a heart full of hope. And that hope is not misplaced, because the extraordinary truth about the 1980 P Jefferson 5 cents is that unlike some rare coins that were produced in tiny, controlled quantities and immediately recognized as special. The error coins and high-grade survivors of the 1980 P production run entered circulation and were distributed across the entire United States, meaning that right now, today, in 2024, there are almost certainly examples of this coin sitting in places where nobody has looked. For them, tucked into the back of a kitchen drawer in a house in Ohio, rattling around in an old coffee can in a garage in Texas, sealed inside a paper roll of nickels that someone bought at a bank in 1980 and never got around to opening, waiting with infinite patience for the moment when someone curious enough, careful enough, and knowledgeable enough comes along to recognize what they have found. The 1980 P Jefferson 5 cents is not just a coin. It is a $46.5 million argument for paying attention, for slowing down, for looking carefully at the things that most people dismiss as ordinary. Because in the world of numismatics, ordinary is never guaranteed, and the difference between a 5-cent coin and a $46 million treasure can come down to a single double die, a single perfectly preserved surface, a single moment of recognition that changes everything. This is the grand finale of today's journey through the most extraordinary Jefferson nickels ever created. 2 coins, 2 mints, 2 different decades, and a combined value that exceeds $80 million. Proof that the American minting process, for all its precision and sophistication, has given us gifts that no one planned and everyone covets. Proof that history hides its most valuable secrets in the most humble and overlooked places, and proof that legacy coins exist for exactly this reason, to make sure that when you reach into your pocket, you reach in with knowledge, with curiosity, and with the understanding that the next coin you pull out might just be the one that rewrites your entire life. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. This is Legacy Coins, and we will see you in the next one.